Good morning and welcome to KUHS Streaming Radio. KUHS International is here to serve your needs every day. I'm Paul Lane and you are watching the Weekend Boost, and today we have a guest, Dr. Alyssa Robin. Thank you so much for joining us. For those of you who don't know, Dr. Robin has a show on Thursdays at 11 o'clock. It is the Dr. Alyssa Show. And before I get started, I want to make sure and introduce a couple of friends of the show.
Absolutely.
Okay, so several weeks back we had a guest, Lanny Cook. Lanny Cook is a very, very awesome man, a wonderful author. He's written a book that I just wanted to introduce and just mention, the Mystery of Zion. And so if you get a chance to look at this book, he's gotten actually 5 books written. We also have a couple of books that I want to talk about just really, really quick. Oh, I'm sorry. Lanny Cook also wrote The Fingernails on the Chalkboard. He was an educator in the Adams County school system, and so this is a really interesting book. The 2 books that I also want to mention are by Albert Quintana. The first one is No More Green Chili, and the other one is The Crochet Lady. Albert's been on the show. Of course, he used to host this show some time back, but a friend of mine, and you can get this book on QuintanaReads.com. I am the author of The Caregiver's Handbook, and that's a self-help love story. And so you can find this book on paullane.net, and if you're interested, please do. I appreciate those of you who have been ordering books over the past weeks. Today we're going to be again talking to Dr. Robin, and the couple of books that you've written is the first one is The Way of the Well, and this is a love story.
It's a love story. It's a spiritual romance and a adventure, a bit of a spiritual adventure.
And this is a true story.
So it's to quote Jimmy Buffett, it's a mostly true story.
Very good.
The elements in there happened, but not in that order with those people, perhaps.
Mm-hmm.
And none of the names, all the names are different. Yes.
To protect the innocent.
Yeah. And then it actually started out as an autobiography, and then somebody suggested I turn it into a novel. So when you turn it into a novel, of course, you got to add some other characters and add some other. So yeah, mostly true story.
So this is such an interesting. You have such an interesting background. You were the Dean of Arts, Language.
Yes. So I was the dean, and I was the Dean of Arts and Sciences right after this book came out, and at the Community College of Denver. Mm-hmm. And then I left there. I became an academic dean at Regis University. So I have an entire academic background. Before that, I was a geologist. I have a master's in geology.
Yes.
So I have a slightly eclectic background. Yes.
And I just feel so fortunate to have you on the show. I really do. Thank you for coming.
I'm so glad to be here. This is great.
Yes. And so you do a little bit of everything. You've also written a book called Pirate Wisdom.
Yes.
And this is a leadership book, and it's kind of out-of-the-box leadership.
It is. It is.
And tell me about that. You've written this with Dr. Cindy Miles, a friend of yours?
Yes, and so Dr. Cindy Miles at the time was actually my supervisor. She was actually my boss. And I was the academic dean, and one of the other deans said to me, "Why do you get away with stuff?" And it hadn't occurred to me, and I said, "Well, I'm a pirate." And she said, "Well, can you explain that to me?" And out of the discussions of sort of how I dealt with corporate politics came this book.
Very good. Which of these was the most recent?
The Pirate was the most recent.
Okay.
But they're very, very different books.
Yes,
right.
Absolutely.
Right.
So you also have a background in astrology.
I also have a background in astrology. So I was a geologist. I got laid off. I had to put myself through a PhD. My PhD is in educational psychology, and I needed to work. And I had some friends who owned a metaphysical bookstore, and they said, "Well, why don't you come in and do astrology and do your readings? And you've always been interested in that stuff." So I put myself through this sort of very traditional kind of PhD as an astrologer.
Very cool. So tell me, there's a lot of people who have conflicts with astrology, who are opposed to it, and yet it's ancient, and it's as ancient as anything that we know today.
Absolutely.
Tell me a little bit about just the background of astrology. What do you know about, where did astrology originate, and why is it so accurate?
So astrology is fascinating. We know we can track it back. We've got biblical references to it, so we know we can track it back quite a ways. And in fact, I just got an article accepted about in a academic journal about how Judaism and astrology are actually not at odds. Mm-hmm. So you can track that people were using astrology in many, many different ways. I think that where people get upset with astrology is when people use it as predictions, when astrologers use it to predict. I do not use it that way at all. The kind of astrology I use is called evolutionary astrology. Stephen Forrest is sort of the famous astrologer who teaches that. And it is more about, what is this time in your life about? How are you going to use this time? How are you going to grow? What are the challenges? And what does your soul crave? Why does your soul incarnate? It's a very different conversation when you talk about astrology that way.
Now, when you say soul incarnate, explain that to me in layman's terms.
In layman's terms, this is a lovely body. I love my body, and
Yes.
inside my body
Yes.
is a soul. That's my belief. There is something inside of me, and that is those two pieces have to come together for me to be alive.
Absolutely.
And so, why was I born? Why am I here? The sort of the question, right? The mankind's question forever. And evolutionary astrology says you came here because your soul had a job to do, and it wants to do that job, whatever that is.
And so it's not at odds biblically. How so?
You really so okay. So this, tell me if I get like a little off. Okay. So what we see biblically, if you go into Jewish scriptures and go into Torah, you see that we're told to not listen to sorcerers and prophesizers, right? Well, in Judaism, you not only have Torah, you have an entire other set of writings called the Talmud. And the Talmud is the rabbis from about the year 500 discussing every single thing that they can think of to discuss. And when we get into there, what we find is that they're talking about astrology. If you're born with the influence of Mars, here's what you might be like. If you're born under the moon, this is what your personality will be like. And what we realize, and we find astrological charts in mosaics on the floors of very, very ancient synagogues in Israel. The moon, it's a moon calendar. The Jewish calendar is a moon calendar, and every month is associated with an astrological sign. So what we find is that there was a use that was about spiritual growth and conversation. What we're prohibited from doing is prediction, right? Because people have free will, and you can choose. And
Yes.
Right.
And so we can use it almost as the Farmer's Almanac.
Think of it that way. Think about the way people use Myers-Briggs.
Yes.
Right? I'm a whatever.
ENFJ. Yeah.
Right, and because
Or
of
ENFP.
that, here's how I need to deal with the things that life throws at me. Because I'm an introvert, an extrovert, an ambivert, whatever I am. So we use it. Think of using it for spiritual guidance. Think of using it, and Jewishly there are so many other things that are sort of mystical, spiritual, that we're taught we can use for guidance to be our best self.
You know, and as I've grown and as I've learned, I've learned that so much has been taken, and I don't want to stay on the subject of spiritual, of biblical topics, but so much mysticism and so much of this topic was removed from the Bible. And I can't help but wonder, why was that? I mean, did they want to limit our knowledge? Why was that?
So what you get, what's fascinating is there's all these, why were the different forms of Bible put together, right?
Yes.
I mean, Torah is Jewish, but that doesn't match exactly what was chosen in and chosen out, right, of the Catholic version, for example.
Absolutely.
And then you've got all these translations, right? It's first written in Hebrew, and then it's translated into Greek, and every time you translate, you interpret. As I said, we have a whole other set of writings called the Talmud. This is huge. I mean, like these, I'm not exaggerating, these very large books that if you read front and back, a page a day, it would take you 7.5 years to read the entire. And I have a dear friend who just finished that, reading a page a day. And that's the rabbis discussing everything. So we have like other instructions besides just Torah.
So there are other resources, and there's a lot more to reality than we really conceive or can actually comprehend.
So. Absolutely, I think so.
That is so interesting. I'm really interested in talking about astrology.
Let's talk about astrology.
All right, very cool.
Let's do that.
So you mentioned that you pulled up today's astrological readings.
I did. I pulled up the chart, and so a chart, if no one's ever had, most people know their sun sign. There's something like, I looked at the percentages the other day, 60% of the people, or 75% of the people in the United States know their sun sign. And 60% of people in the United States know their partner's sun sign and read their partner's horoscope.
Oh,
So there, even though we don't talk about people believing it, there's a huge number of people who are interested. And what most people know is their sun sign. Well, there's a great deal more to astrology. There's 10 planets, there's 12 houses, and so when somebody pulls your chart, there's so much more information.
Wow.
Again, it would be like if you looked at your Myers-Briggs and the only thing you paid attention to was introvert, extrovert.
Yes.
As opposed to all the other wealth of information in there.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah, I remember my first exposure to the Myers-Briggs, and it almost separated people into all these individual
Little
groups,
boxes. Yeah,
into boxes.
I know.
And and then the facilitator broke it down and made us realize that no, you know what, you can speak that other person's language. All you have to understand is that is their language.
That's right. Yeah.
And so when we have someone who is an opposing astrological sign, for example, we can find ways to find common ground with that
Absolutely, absolutely. And understand, so every astrologer will always start with your sun sign, your moon sign, and your rising. Most people only know their sun sign. So those are the three personality parts right there. And then they'll look at a chart and say, the day you were born, what planets were next to each other or opposing each other.
Wow.
And all of that builds your personality, and it also talks about your pathway in life, how you approach things.
So that's amazing. All I ever heard of was a sun sign. I never knew about moon sign.
I know. So your sun sign is your ego. What's your sun sign?
Pisces.
Okay. So I'd have to run your chart to get the rest of this, which I can do if you feel like.
Absolutely.
So I have my little. I'm going to do this carefully here. Okay.
I'm going to write my date and birthday down so you don't have to broadcast it.
Okay, great. Yeah, listen, I do that. So our sun sign is our ego. Think about the person who goes to work, right? Your heart goes to work. You're a Pisces. You're very, very intuitive. I mean, this is a very broad brush, right? But Pisces, the problem that most Pisces face in life is that they're so intuitive, they know what people need. And their assumption is other people know what they need. And they don't. And so what you have to teach a Pisces to do is ask for what they need. Right? Does that make sense to you?
Absolutely.
Right.
Absolutely.
So I'm going to get to a website here.
So when you say moon sign,
the day you were born, the sun was somewhere in the sky.
Oh.
The moon was somewhere in the sky. And so was Venus and Mars and Mercury and Neptune and Pluto and Saturn and Jupiter and I lost something, Saturn, and I didn't do that in order.
I'd be lucky to remember them, much less in
right,
order.
but you can see in this picture here that this is almost like a photograph of where the planets were when you were born.
Oh man, okay.
Okay, and that never changes. Your birth chart never changes. But the planets, they keep moving. Do you know what time you were born, by chance?
I believe around 5 in the afternoon.
Okay, we'll guess that. In Denver, maybe?
Walsenburg, Southern Colorado.
Okay, it's close. I just have to get close.
Sure,
sure. For the time. Okay. So what I'm going to pull up here on this website, and people can do this. They can go to this website and pull up that's your astrological chart.
Wow.
Okay? So here's where everything was the day you were born.
Oh my
Now
goodness.
this doesn't change.
That's like a picture of the day I was born.
Yeah, of the skies, right? It's a picture.
Very cool.
All right? And so think of it as an incredibly in-depth Myers-Briggs. And in fact, do you know the story of where Myers-Briggs came from?
I don't.
So Myers and Briggs were mother and daughter. The mother was very, very enamored of Carl Jung's theories of archetypes, and she believed she could type children. And so the kids came in from the neighborhood, and she typed, I think she was probably just typing introvert, extrovert, but she called it something else. And then daughter grows up and goes off to college, and mom gets more involved with reading about Carl Jung and Carl Jung's archetypes. We can track back and realize that Carl Jung's archetypes came from the myths that are underlying astrology, because each of these planets, Mars right? The god of war. Mercury, the god of communication. Right? So that they're connected back to the planets, which I always find fascinating. And so his mythology of archetypes found its way into the Myers-Briggs.
Oh, wow.
Right? It's just, but, all right.
Fascinating.
So your chart, if we look at it, so so here's your sun sign. So sun in Pisces. Here's your moon sign. The moon was in Taurus the day you were born. Taurians, so every sign has very positive elements and very challenging elements.
Yes.
What's hysterical, that I think is hysterical, is that most of us love the negative aspects of our own sign. For example, I'm an Aquarius, and we have a reputation of being kind of wacky and out there, and I love that. If you talk to a Leo, and every time I meet a Leo, they do this little thing with their head. They'll say, you always end up sort of taken over, and they'll toss their head and go, well, yes, of course. So we love that part of our chart.
Did you hear that, Joey? That's my brother.
Does he toss his head? So it's just funny. So your moon is in Taurus, and Taurus has, again, positive and negative, depending how you view it. Taurus is the most sensual sign, not sexual, sensual sign in the zodiac. Meaning, I always joke, if you want to enjoy a meal, go out to eat with a Taurus. And our moon sign is who we are with friends. So my hunch is that one of the things you love to do with friends is good meals and good sensuous experiences, right? Good wine, perhaps. Whatever sensuous means to you, right? Of the body.
I always say when I leave this world, I'm going to miss one thing, and that's food.
And that's food.
But yeah, that makes sense. That really does make sense.
And so that's sort of who you are with friends. The other side of a Taurus, and in a Taurus moon it would be who you are emotionally, is Taurus is like that bull Ferdinand on the hill, and there's grass and the sun is shining and there's a slight breeze, and if nothing ever changes, life is perfect. And so what you say about Taurians is they will do anything, go to almost any extreme to make sure life doesn't change.
Wow.
Right? Does that make sense? Again, in an emotional sense.
I'm kind of torn on that subject, because I somehow, for some reason, there's a part of me that embraces change. And I guess because I've accepted that change is part of a life. Right. But there's this other part of me that wants everything to remain as it is.
And especially in your world of relationships, because it's your moon sign.
Yeah.
So the world around you might change, but you feel secure when relationships are stable.
So when my wife was diagnosed with cancer and we found out it was terminal, that shattered my whole illusion.
Of course it did. Oh my gosh.
And so for a Taurus to go through something like that,
oh my gosh, and a Pisces to go through something like that.
Yeah,
both of those, the Taurus who wants to keep everything safe and secure, and then that Pisces heart. Oh my gosh, that had to rip you apart.
That explains why the book has so many emotional elements in it. So
Right.
I don't want to talk about myself. Forgive me, but I just very
we could do it for
interesting.
hours. So usually, just so you know,
Wow.
when I do someone's chart, the first time I do it, it's about 2 hours, and what I focus on is their relationship with prosperity, but often their relationship with money, their relationship with other people, and so it's not simply a reading. It is, where are you in life, what's going on, and where do we want to go? Because I got that PhD in psych, so. Right.
Absolutely.
So it's one of the tools I use.
Wow, what a great thing to understand and know. So if somebody wanted to get this information, where would they go?
To get about me, or to get this?
No, yeah, about this zodiological.
Tons of books. I always recommend books by Stephen Forrest.
Stephen Forrest.
And
this website that you're on, is that
this website here is called, I just lost it, I always forget the name of it, alabe.com, and if they go there, they can run a free chart, and then there'll be a printout. It's a very, very basic printout, but it'll talk about each of the planets and what that means.
So cool.
I know, so there's so much to learn, and it's actually very accessible.
So you mentioned about knowing yourself. Viktor Frankl wrote a book, Man's Search for Meaning.
Yes, changed my life.
Wonderful book. Me too.
Yeah.
And so as you were mentioning that, I thought about this topic, and astrological knowledge is really just another facet or a tool to understand and know ourselves.
That's all it is.
Yes.
That's what we use it for. Absolutely.
Yes.
Like, how do I know more about you know, we so many times somebody will say to me, my life isn't what I want it to be. Okay, let's go back to, what are your belief systems?
Yes.
Because we manifest what we believe. I believe whatever, and then I act on that in alignment with my beliefs, and I create the life based on those beliefs. Let's go in. And so think of it as a shortcut to therapy, right? We don't have to go, I can tell you where some of this is. And we don't have to go back. We want to go forward, and astrology helps us go forward.
That makes so much perfect sense. So if someone is a religious person and they're struggling with this topic right now, and they're watching us right now, what advice would you have for them? You've gone kind of mentioned a little bit, but what would you tell someone who really is wants to know more, but they really are kind of afraid to delve into that? Because
I mean, first off, I completely understand. Of course, we're always afraid of the unknown. We're afraid of something that sounds sort of mystical or mysterious. It, like acupuncture, is something that people have been using for thousands of years, and I think only recently has it turned into, I'm going to predict your future. If you look at it again as the Enneagram or the Myers-Briggs or any of those personality assessments, and you simply take it that way, you take off all, it has no power to control you. It's simply information about who you are.
Oh, cool. Now, you've mentioned the sun, and you mentioned the moon, and there was a third element.
Your rising.
Your rising. Now, what exactly does that mean?
Okay, so your rising is in Virgo. I'm just looking. So when we're born, there is, that's why I needed the time, there is a constellation coming up on the horizon. Okay? And the rising, so our sun is the part of us that sort of goes to work. Our moon is the part of us that has like after work relationship with friends, right? Our rising is our mask. We don't try to put this on, it's just that we are colored by this constellation that was coming up in the sky. So imagine that each of us is behind like a stained glass window, and it colors who we are. So if I was behind a red piece of glass, everything about me would have more of a reddish hue to me, right? That's our rising. And we feel it, we act out that rising, but it's what people meet. Okay, so for example, your rising is in Virgo, so people probably meet somebody who's organized. And that goes very well with your Taurus, because they're both earth signs, but who also has a sense of wanting perfection in what they do, right? Whatever that might be. And that's who they meet. Meeting that, they don't know at first about that Pisces, soft-hearted, loving, caring, because that's not who they meet. Right? They meet our rising. Right? So for example, in case anyone out there wants to know, I have a sun and moon in Aquarius, but I have a Scorpio rising. And when people meet me, that's what they see. I've had people say to me, I can't believe you're in Aquarius. Yeah, it's because I look like a Scorpio.
Wow, that makes a lot of sense. My girlfriend tells me, you're really a perfectionist. And it's like, I don't see myself that way.
No.
You know,
right, because you're on this side of stained glass,
of that
right?
stained glass.
Yeah, right. And then we see that sort of reflected back to us.
Wow.
Which
Very
is a great
cool
thing to know, isn't it? Isn't
Yeah,
it
this
good
is
to know
insightful.
sort of how the world sees me as opposed to simply how I think I am?
Yes. You know, psychologists say we're three people. The person we think we are, the person other people think we are, and that person we really are.
We really are.
And so that's that
That's
rising.
absolutely this. Absolutely.
Oh my gosh. That is so cool.
Right.
Now, let's say somebody had some, these readings, but they wanted to, because they didn't like the downside or the negative side of that. Could someone conceivably change themselves in some way to?
Oh, we can always change ourselves, right? We can always, so Virgo can be a perfectionist and look around and try to fix everyone around them. Or Virgo can be a perfectionist and appreciate the perfection that exists around them.
So it's a matter of perspective.
Absolutely.
And really, that makes sense too.
It's
Oh
free
my gosh.
choice. It's what do I do with this tendency I have?
This is so exciting.
Right? Aquarians are the rebel of the universe, right? and I live my life that way. Now, do I live my life in a way where I break rules and I need to prove? No, I'm much quieter than that. But I do. I've made different choices about how I want my life to look. So we always can do that, right? This doesn't control you. This gives you information.
It's kind of a roadmap. It's kind of a guide.
Yeah.
This is so incredibly cool. Folks, if you're just joining us today, I am Paul Lane. You're watching the Weekend Boost on KUHS International, the stream. Today we're talking to Dr. Robin. She's written a couple of books. We're talking about astrology today, but she's written the book The Way of the Well, and she's also written the book Pirate Wisdom. But she's very diverse in her background and eclectic, and she's just so knowledgeable. I'm just so honored to have you on the show.
I'm having so much fun. This is great.
I wanted to take a chance to actually introduce this book to Charlie Pacello has a show on Friday afternoons at 1:00, and he's written this book, Meditations with Masters of the Axial Age. And so if you're interested in any of the books that I mentioned today, get a hold of us here at the station, and we'd be glad to accommodate you on that. And again, Dr. Robin, tell us, we were just talking about astrology. So
right.
you've printed up today's astrological reading. You know, what exactly does that mean?
So what I captured in this is, where are the planets now, today? And there are some things that many, many astrologers have been talking about. This one I think you'll find entertaining. There are two major planets that have been next to each other. We say it's conjunct, that's the verbiage we use, when they're next to each other. And when two planets are next to each other, think about to anybody, to people who are next to each other, the intensity of the person, right, becomes bigger, it intensifies.
Kind of symbiotic.
Right, yeah, great word. So Saturn in the sky, and if you're an astrologer out there, I hope I live up to your your expectations of this. Saturn is the planet of how we see the world structured. What are the rules? Okay. Pluto is the planet, it's the furthest away, and it is the planet of sort of deep knowing. And the way we deeply know something is we take off all the covers and expose the underbelly. Those two planets are in the sky right now together, and they've been in the sky together for quite a while. But I just want you to think about international politics for the last 6 months. Here's the structure, and what are we seeing? We're seeing, without naming names or going anywhere, we keep seeing underbelly we didn't know was there.
Wow. In
lots of different places around the world. And part of it is, we have social media, so we see more. But now it seems like the hidden is becoming visible.
Revealed.
Absolutely. And that's the power of those two planets together.
Wow.
So we're seeing it internationally. And then in a person's chart, we want to see, they're in Capricorn, we want to see where Capricorn is in somebody's chart. And that will tell us where it's happening in their life.
Wow.
Very, very powerful. And what we find for people is that we're all doing a little, one way or the other. We're either questioning and willing to change, or we're holding on tighter. Right? Because it's scary to believe that the things I've known as true in my life might not be. That's frightening for people.
So coming to terms with who we really are comes to light.
It does. Who am I really, and what is my community really? And and I think it's something we're seeing people around the world grappling with.
Yes. So would you say that there are people, I'm sure there are people who don't understand who they are, and are going through life really kind of drifting aimlessly because they don't have any direction, and this might be able to reveal or give them some guidance or something?
I think that I think there are people who feel that they want to know more, they're driven to know more, and astrology is incredibly helpful.
Yes.
There are definitely people who feel like, especially when they hit certain ages, 30s, kind of the classic, right? What am I doing with my life? 45 is another sort of classic. What am I doing? And this can help.
Very cool.
It can help say, well, what did you come here to do? What have you done, and what calls you? So I think it's great for that. And there are also people in the world, I have to say, who live lovely, lovely lives and never ask that question, and that's fine.
And so it's a tool, and it's not a necessity,
Right.
but yet it's something that's very helpful and can
Absolutely.
be very a good guidance.
Absolutely,
someone.
absolutely,
No,
and
hold
not
on.
scary.
Yeah, not scary.
Not
I think
scary.
that's really key. Not
Mhm.
scary. I'm looking at this chart, and I'm just going to pick it up here. This part looks really complicated. It looks like there's, for those of you who in this center circle, you'll see there's a lot of lines that are all conjunct,
Mhm.
and it seems like is there some conflict, or is that
So recently, all of these planets that you're seeing up here were actually in Capricorn and packed up very, very tightly together. And that was in January. And it gave us the sense the year was going to be about, because Capricorn is also about the structures.
Mhm.
My favorite Capricorns all build things. Every Capricorn I know who's a true Capricorn builds something, houses or sculptures or something.
wow?
How are we building the world? Right? But with Pluto in there, it says, how do you want to build it in a way that is true, that is honest? And so when planets are together, it pushes us deeper into whatever that sign is.
Mhm.
Right? So you kind of imagine this. Imagine you had 10 extroverts in the room. The room turns into a room full of extroverts, right? When all the planets are in one place, it pushes us into whatever that energy is.
Man, that's deep. That is exciting. I'm sure that's got good and bad
It
aspects.
has good and bad aspects.
I'm afraid to ask.
And so, I mean, life is like that, right?
Yeah.
Everything can be a challenge and everything can be a gift, and
Mhm.
they can be both at the same time.
Mhm.
And I think that's what we're seeing around the world right now, is the ultimate gift that there's some more honesty and awareness coming to the planet.
A lot of awareness.
Yeah, absolutely. Is that challenging? Absolutely. Is
Yeah.
it frightening? Absolutely.
Yes. You know, I talked a little bit about last week. Eckhart Tolle talked about a new
Mhm.
earth and this new
Mhm.
awareness and
Mhm.
this new, just a presence or an awareness that's abounding in the earth, and it's.
Mhm.
I think that this is really a part of that. I really do.
Right.
I think it's very all encompassing.
I think you can think of it as a birth process, right? That life doesn't change. That life doesn't stay stable. We're not going to go back and be who we were in the 1950s or the 80s. Right? We're not going to do that. That's not who we are. Okay. And we're becoming something else, and that's a birth process, and that is scary.
Mhm. So it's really an awakening for many
It's an
people.
awakening.
It's awakening,
Absolutely.
and it's a good awakening. I think it's
I think it's a great awakening. I just think it depends how you take it.
you embrace it or
How you- yeah.
receive it. Yeah,
Yeah.
very true. Would you say that this explains the condition in the United States? We have a real division that's on.
Such a division.
and-
It's
and
awful.
is-
My take on the division, quite honestly, is that it's scary to think of not changing, and it's scary to think of changing, and when life starts to change, humans, because we are tribal in nature, let me get with other people, right? This is just how we are, and that's not a bad thing. How do we feel safe?
Mhm.
Okay, well, if you feel safe by embracing change and welcome, then you're going to go find those people and loudly defend that.
Mhm.
If I feel safe by saying, no, the way we live is good and right and true, and I'm going to be with those people, now how do we even have a conversation?
Yes.
And the truth is, we could have a conversation if we admitted we're both kind of scared,
Boy.
right?
Yeah. That's comforting even to hear. I
Yeah.
have to say, it's a realization that I think we need to
Yeah.
come to.
Yeah, we're a little scared.
Mm.
Okay, how do we stop pounding the table about the right thing to do and admit that and I just have to say this, I think almost every woman on this planet everywhere says, are my kids going to be okay? Do I have, right? And I think every father on the planet says something to the effect of, well, my kids have a life as good as mine.
Mhm.
Okay, could we start there? How do we make sure that the life you want, that the life let's just start with some basics.
Some common ground.
Are we going to be okay? Let's go back to common, because we have it,
Mhm.
right? I mean, astrology has it. We have it. We just forget because we get scared.
Yes.
And question about Virgos. So we got this, and ask about Virgos. Okay, I think we want more information about Virgos is what that is. I'm actually have the Facebook site open, and so if somebody does have a question,
So this is my sister Fran, my dear friend and sister Fran.
and what do you think she wants to know about?
Well, she's a Virgo, and she's just such a, I don't know, she's just the most outgoing, friendly, loving person. We became friends. Well, we've known each other since about 8th grade.
Okay.
But we became friends after I lost my wife, and we just clicked, just like family.
Mhm.
Then we found out that we have common ancestors, so we have a
Oh my
relative
gosh. Oh my gosh.
background. But
Wow.
she's a Virgo, and gosh, I can't remember. I think she was born.
That's okay. Let's
Gosh,
just
I don't
talk
know.
about Virgos for a little
Yes.
bit. So, Virgo, again, what we think about Virgos is perfection, and they're an Earth sign. However, what Virgos often struggle with is the ongoing chatter in their brain about how to be more perfect. What we find about Virgos is it's hard for them to launch something because it could always be better. My website could be a better color, my ideas could be more refined, I can go home and see how I could decorate better. I have to say that I think Virgos are great interior designers if they can get to a little bit of good enough, right? Stop moving the candle 2.5 inches to the right. You know, just leave it where it is. It's a very amazing sign in that they can walk into a situation and see what's off and figure out what could happen. They need to stop punishing themselves for not being perfect. And this is hysterical. So I'm an Aquarius. I have that inner chatter. Virgos have that inner chatter. There are people who do not have an inner chatter, and that never occurred to me. There are people in the world right now listening who what do you mean an inner chatter? What do you mean your brain never stops? Don't you just sort of chill? Well, you do. You're the Taurus moon. You can just chill. My brain, it takes work, and that's one of the things we talk about with Virgo.
Wow. As far as relationships and Virgos, what do you see, or what advice would you have for a Virgo as far as, and I want to say romantic relationships.
Right. So,
and I don't know if that's what she means, but I'm going to throw that
we're
in
going to
for
throw
her.
that out there because Valentine's Day is coming, and
That's
you know,
right.
my next show is the day before Valentine's. I'm having a friend of mine who is an astrologer also on the show, and we're going to talk about love and astrology for the entire show. So the first thing is you have to look at an entire chart. Right? If I just looked at your sun and saw that Pisces, whatever it was, oh, it's not you, you're over here, sorry. I would say, well, that's fascinating, and it happens to be in the house of relationships. But you know, you've got this Taurus moon that is about how your heart is also fed by sort of sensual experiences, right? So, yeah, you want somebody who's intuitive and soft and lovely, but you also want someone that wines and dines and dances, perhaps slow dances. So sometimes we want to match our moon sign even more than our sun sign.
Well, that explains a lot.
Okay.
It really explains a lot. I met a woman in September or in October, and I just can't even explain how we just intertwined, and there were so many like desires, interests, and you know, I looked at compatibility and it didn't show us as uncompatible, but
not good though, right? Yeah.
Yeah, but what I have found is that everything that I've looked for, it's her. You know, I mean, she loves to wine and dine, and we have candlelight dinner last night. And, you know, and I mean, it's just like so fulfilling, and it's like, why am I so satisfied?
Right.
You know, and now that I'm looking at this, it's like, oh, this makes sense.
Right, I know. But since all we know is our sun sign, again, it would be like only knowing that I'm an ambivert or an introvert extrovert, like one little element of something. That I was good in one topic at school, and that's all I know. Right? I only know English. I don't know anything else. Right? This is so. A lot of times people will say to me, "Well, you know, I'm my son and his sun sign. Are we good?" I don't know. Let me run your charts.
Yes.
Let me run the entire chart, and then now I also have to say something, and that is that your chart does not predict. I've run over this last year when I've had my dating adventures going on. I've run lots of charts, And sometimes they say we'd be great together and we have no chemistry.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes they say, oh my God, this could be brilliant. Well, you know, our life paths have gone in very different ways.
Mm-hmm.
So this doesn't guarantee.
Mm-hmm.
It tells you where those connections could be.
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes it says why you'd be great friends.
Wow.
Right? But there's always that human element.
Yep. You know, it's so interesting. I was just thinking about the 5 love languages.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and when I met this woman Dee, first thing she said to me that was really profound was,
Mm-hmm.
the universe sent me to you, and I had been manifesting her for weeks before.
Wow.
And then she kept saying this term. I came here because I want to find quality time with you. I want to have quality time with you.
Uh-huh.
And she said it over and over, and it's
Right.
like, oh my gosh, you don't know what this is. It's just so exciting because that's one of my love languages, you know. And so, I mean, the astrological aspect of our relationship really
Mhm.
didn't even have a presence. But now, as I'm looking at it, it's almost like it was all interconnected, and it was all a
Right.
part of what's happening.
It often explains.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Again, I don't do predictive.
Sure.
But this does explain things.
Yeah, and I think for me, I can't speak for the world, but for me, this is exciting to know because this really gives me. I'm not looking for a prediction of the future, but
Right.
it's nice to
Yeah.
have a roadmap of where I am now.
Yes.
You know,
Yeah.
the most important point on the compass is not north, south, east, or west. Is where you are
Where
now.
you are now, right? And then, if you want to manifest something, how is it that you manifest? Right? Because
Yes.
it's different for different people.
Yes,
Right?
I'm really gaining understanding of that
Mhm.
too. You know, for many people, I ask, you know, because I teach a lot of people about manifesting
Mhm.
too, and for a lot of people, I tell them write this, write this, write this, write this,
Mhm.
and they go, no, I will not do it.
Right.
It's not their makeup.
It's not their makeup.
And so, you know, for some people, this astrological layout or explanation
Yeah.
may be all fine and well, but for them, it's not the tool that they want to
That's right.
use for guidance
That's right.
or direction.
It may not be.
Yeah.
You know, I know people who do vision boards,
Yes,
and they can be very powerful.
yes.
I actually do playlists.
Mm-hmm.
So right now, I am enamored of a few different love songs, and I'm manifesting by being in that feeling
Yes,
of that, as
Yes.
opposed to pictures.
yes.
Now, it's just a style.
Mm-hmm. That's so interesting that you mentioned that. On my next show, we're having a guest. Her name's Lisa Marie, and she
Mhm.
does a lot of manifesting.
Mm-hmm.
And this morning, I was listening to her YouTube clip that she sent
Right.
me, and it talks about manifesting. And we think of a house, and we think of a house, and we only think of that aspect of our manifesting. And what we don't realize is, along goes with that house goes security, and goes
Mhm.
prestige, and a pride of ownership,
Mhm.
and neighbors, and a place for the family, and
Mhm.
you know, and all of these
Mhm.
things. And what's happening is we are vibrating in this frequency, when in actuality, when we would look at that security, when we would look at that peace of mind, and we would look
Right.
at all of those other parts of that house,
Mhm.
then it makes all that manifesting all that much more powerful.
Right.
So when we're looking at a relationship, you know, we shouldn't just look at something that's someone who's a good kisser. You know, we
Right.
look for someone who is endearing, and someone who is a good cook, or
We
someone
want
who
to feel a certain way,
yes,
right?
yes,
And what I've learned over time is that on some level we've been taught to manifest from our brains.
Mhm.
Our brains don't manifest. Our
Mhm.
brains notice. We manifest from emotion. We
Yes.
manifest from a sense of craving and desire.
Mhm.
That's where we manifest from.
Mhm.
So if all we do is sort of the very analytical, it's very difficult to manifest more than simply the structure.
Absolutely. There's so much more, and
Mhm.
I it's a great topic. I love bringing guests who talk about things like this that is so out of the box. I just love it. When you are doing someone's astrological reading,
Uh-huh.
do you do this for a fee, or do you do this
Yeah,
as
this
just for
is part of
fun?
what, no, this is part of what I've done it for fun for years, but I've left my academic dean world behind, and I am now working with people as an astrologer and also a wealth relationship expert. So I work with people on helping them build their relationship with money,
Mhm.
which also overlaps into their relationship with other people.
Mhm.
And astrology is one of the tools I use. Now, often what I'll do is start with, let's just do a 2-hour session,
Mhm.
and then let's see what you need from there. Right. And so I have people who basically have me on retainer and can call me and say, this is up, I'm not sure what to do. I've
Mhm.
helped people find jobs, help people launch businesses. And again, this isn't the predictor. This is one of the languages I use to help them.
One of the many tools.
Yeah, absolutely.
So if somebody wanted to reach out to you and get a hold of you and you know, acquire your services, how would they reach you?
They can get me on my website.
On your website? What's your website?
It's elisarobin.com. Robin, ELISAROBYN. Yeah, elisarobin.com.
So
they can find me here, I bet. I bet they can also go on
you can just go to the
KUHS streaming, right? And
You bet.
go on the website and go on the Facebook site. And they can, right?
Yes.
They can find me there.
Fran, if you're listening, I'm going to ask you to send me your birthday, text it to me, and I'll ask Dr. Robin to, if you wouldn't mind,
I don't mind at all.
take a look at that.
Absolutely.
So I'm standing by for you, Fran.
Okay. And so let me go back to here. You know, you'd be amazed at the conversations that I have with people about when we do astrology, because I'm not predictive, I'm not judgmental. I've been through huge challenges in my life, just like most people. Right? And what I know is we're trying. We're trying, but often we don't have good guides. We don't have ways of knowing. Right? We don't have. Sometimes we don't have anyone to help us, and that's difficult. It is just. We try to read all the books. I know people will say, "Well, I read so and so's book and so and so's book, and I tried it, and that's good. I mean, that's good that you're reading books, but sometimes we need something personal."
Yes.
So, do we have a year?
1959.
Okay.
You know, I just stumbled across a book, Edgar Casey.
Oh my God.
Oh my goodness, it is The American Prophet is like 540 pages. I cannot put this book down.
He's amazing. So I'm gonna just run it. We don't know the time, so I'm just gonna. I'm not. So what I won't get is
The rising.
the rising sign.
I'm already starting to grasp a little bit of
Look
this.
at that. You'll be an astrologer by the end of the hour.
Oh yeah, my daughter really is into this.
Okay, so now what a rising sign does is it tells us. You know when you showed this chart,
Yes.
right? And the rising is over here, and when the rising is here, it tells us where everything else is oriented in a chart. Okay.
Wow.
So if we look at this chart, that's probably not her rising. I mean, I have no idea. I just put a number in, right? So all of these planets that are so close together, it's very, very powerful chart. And I don't know where they are, right? I would need the time of birth to know exactly where they are. But this is a very powerful chart. This is somebody who has a great deal of Virgo and very powerful Leo right next to their Virgo. And then the softening of this Libra energy in their moon sign right there. And very, very focused. Wherever the houses, each of these pie-shaped things is called a house.
Okay.
And a house tells us where we play out something in our life. Okay? An empty house doesn't mean we don't do that. It just means it's not it's not the focus. So I don't know where these are. It's a very, very powerfully focused chart. She's a very focused individual.
Very focused.
She has a way she softens it via Libra. I love Libra aesthetics. Libra, take them to a museum. They're very happy. Take them to something calm and simple, right? She actually came here, incarnated, to live more of that Libra energy. It's fascinating. But this is a very, very powerful, very, very strong Virgo with, again, this leadership punch here. Leos are always leaders. They always step in. And so, and like I said, I don't know where it plays out in
Can
the
you
chart.
tell she likes to dance?
It would be nice to know where this is. I would say she likes to be, to learn things and accomplish things.
Yes.
That's what I would say.
Yes.
And that when she accomplishes them, the doing of it is so enjoyable, right? And the improving on it is so enjoyable. So dance can be one, but it could be horseback riding, right? It could be gymnastics. It could be cooking. It could be something else.
She loves
right?
music too.
Yeah. It would be fascinating to know this and then know where all of that fits in there.
Wow, it's you know, my daughter and I were talking about astrology the other day, and she was talking about getting a readout, and she says you have to know what time you were born.
That's right.
And
it's
so
on your birth certificate. Usually, it's on your birth certificate.
So I mean, it all makes sense now. I didn't realize we had a sun and a sun and a moon.
A sun and a moon, and then each of
and then a
these are
rising.
other planets, and then so you have a planet, right? Sun in a sign, Virgo in a house, 9th house.
Wow.
And it's probably not the 9th house, because if I knew her rising, I would know where things are, okay? So that's 3 bits of information about just the sun.
Fascinating.
Sun in a sign in a house, moon in a sign in a house. You add all of that together.
Wow. Did you go to school to learn this, or did you just
No.
read books?
Yeah, I read books. I have some amazing teachers. So the guys I learned from had a place called 12th House Bookstore. It was on Old South Pearl. They closed it years ago. They now have a 1-2-listen site. They took everything online. So it's the number 2listen.com, and it's run by a guy, John and Mark. John is my favorite astrologer. Mark is another really great astrologer, and they taught me stuff, and then I just kept reading and reading and reading. And then the way I learned astrology was by understanding my chart, and then reading friends' charts and understanding my best friend's chart. Wow! And then you learn it because it's real. It's not, here's what Virgos do, and it's in your head. I have a Virgo in my head, right? I know a Virgo. I know a Sagittarius. I know a Scorpio. I know, and I'm like, oh my gosh, this is how that person embodies that energy.
Wow. Wow. Very interesting. I'm sold. I gotta get. I'm gonna start learning more about astrology. I've just been learning so much about mysticism, and so much about things that I was always taught were bad things, and I'm realizing that they were never bad. You know, the Salem witches were all killed for no other reason than they didn't understand, and that was where I was. I didn't understand.
Right. Yeah. It's fascinating. I know we're getting
We
close
are-
on time. Can
we
you believe
are
that?
about
Look
out
at
of
that.
time.
You've got 2 minutes left.
Yeah. I am so glad. I mean, I've gotten so much out of our talk today, and I'm
This
just
has been great.
so
This has
thankful.
been
that
so
you-
fun.
Yes, thank you so much. Again, I just want to show her books: Pirate Wisdom, a book on leadership, and The Way of the Wise.
Way of the Well.
I'm sorry, The Way of the Well.
Right.
I've just been talking to you. I have so much wisdom to add for you. But if you get a chance, Alyssa,
And they're on Amazon. You can
you
find
can
them
get
on
them
Amazon.
both on Amazon. So
Right.
please do order these books. I think you'll really be rewarded by them. I think you'll get a lot of insight. If someone wanted to contract your services, what would the fee be?
So I usually do a 2-hour first for $175, but and that's also with phone calls afterwards. And I have an hourly fee otherwise of $150. They can do a monthly fee. There's lots of ways to work with me. Depends what they want to do.
So folks, get a hold of Dr. Robin. You will not be sorry. Thank you for joining us, folks. I hope you have a wonderful day. I will be talking to you in 2 weeks. We'll be talking to Lisa Marie, who has some really insightful stuff on manifestation. And again, Dr. Robin, thank you so much for being here today.
This was so fun.
Yes, I really enjoyed it. Thank you very
Really
much.
enjoyed it.